I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics, messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for October the 28th, 2025. Today, we have a slightly shorter episode, but I would like you all to be thinking about Thursday and Friday, where I'm planning for us to have some rather longer episodes, particularly in the theology roundup, because you all have been asking for me to address some very important and, yes, even a little controversial topics. Now, our theology roundup today, we're going to talk about non-Jewish inheritance in the Holy Land. So the past few weeks, we've discussed things like the Commonwealth of Israel, the Israel of God yesterday. If someone is on the bilateral ecclesiology side of the spectrum, that can get them, no doubt, a little upset. However, while I believe that non-Jewish believers are grafted into Israel's olive tree by their faith in Yeshua, they are part of the polity of Israel, the Commonwealth of Israel, via their Messiah faith. They're to be reckoned as members of the Israel of God via their Messiah faith. That hardly means that we are all the same, and that does not mean that, unlike what some other people teach or what some other people may espouse, that we are all the same, because we are not, and there are various differences. And so in discussing the issue of inheritance in the Holy Land, we're going to discuss one of those major differences. All right, so if you will turn with me to the Messianic Apologetics website, messianicapologetics.net, you can click on the FAQs tab, and you can scroll down to the letter I. These are all, of course, in alphabetical order. And there you have it, inheritance in the Holy Land, non-Jews. You can click that, and then a PDF file will open up. All right, so here is the question which needs to be considered. Throughout the one law or one Torah movement, and especially in the Hebrew or Hebraic roots movement, I have heard that non-Jewish believers in Israel's Messiah will all be granted permanent residence in the Holy Land when Yeshua returns. Is this true or not? Indeed, this is one of those questions, one of those issues which does not get probed enough, and we do not see enough critical thinking. Ezekiel 47:13 through 20 details various tribal boundaries for the land of Israel and the millennial kingdom, which are altered from those seen previously in the Tanakh scriptures. It is first summarized, "So you shall divide this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel." Ezekiel 47:21, New American Standard. This is then followed by the statement, "You shall divide it by lot for an inheritance among yourselves and among the aliens who stay in your midst, who bring forth sons in your midst. And they shall be to you as the native born among the sons of Israel. They shall be allotted an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel, and in the tribe with which the alien stays, there you shall give him his inheritance." Ezekiel 37:22 and 23, New American Standard. It is, of course, fair to recognize that there will be various gerim or sojourners who have decisively entered into the community of Israel and are granted permanent residence and territory in this land of Israel. While in the Torah, outsiders were always welcome to join the community of Israel and worship Israel's God. Leviticus 19:34. They had no allotment of tribal lands. What is witnessed in Ezekiel 47:22 is different. Is it appropriate to conclude that all non-Jewish believers in Israel's Messiah classify as being among those granted tribal territories in the land of Israel, and that when Yeshua returns, all non-Jewish believers in Israel's Messiah will be granted permanent residence in the Promised Land? No. While non-Jewish believers are to be active participants and co-laborers in the restoration of Israel with their fellow Jewish believers, heralding the return of King Messiah, and must be active in seeing Jewish people come to faith in the Messiah, Romans 11:11, the promised return of the descendants of Israel to the Promised Land will not directly involve most of today's non-Jewish Messianic believers. This is because the tribal territories in the Holy Land, Joshua chapters 15 through 21, Ezekiel 47:13 to 48:35, are very specific to the 12 tribes of Israel. It would be fair to deduce that the sojourners mentioned in Ezekiel 47:22 and 23, who are given an allotment of territory formally promised to the 12 tribes of Israel, are limited to a specific and limited number of non-Jewish people who have been very closely aligned with Israel's restoration. Non-Jewish believers may be regarded as a part of a kingdom of Israel with a restored 12 tribes at its center, James 1:1, whose borders have widened themselves, Amos 9:11 and 12, Acts 15:15 through 18, but they are nonetheless not ethnic Israelites and are not entitled to permanent habitation in a rather small land of Israel. Furthermore, there is no biblical evidence at all that all people living on earth during the millennial kingdom will live in the land of Israel. While Jewish and non-Jewish believers in Israel's Messiah have far more in common than not as fellow members of the Commonwealth of Israel, Ephesians 2:11 through 13, tribal inheritance in the land of Israel is something almost exclusively reserved for ethnic Israelites and not those of the nations. So when you see this passage referred to again, Ezekiel 47:22 and 23, in my opinion, only a simplistic interpreter of Holy Scripture would make that universal to all people or all non-Jewish believers and the millennial kingdom. That it's not something sustainable in my view. Are there going to be some granted inheritance in the land of Israel? Yes, and it's probably going to be among those who were very much closely interconnected and intertwined with the restoration of Israel. But for people in general, no. And unfortunately, especially in Hebrew roots and one law, that's a passage which is read as though it is something universal. And that's going to be something which, I hate to use this term, a number of people are going to have to deconstruct from, because one law or one Torah theology is a product of fundamentalism. It frequently did not subject itself to open criticism, constructive criticism. It's not something which is too self-critical, and its various leaders and proponents don't like it sometimes when somebody like me, starting from the premise of, look, we have far more in common than not, and we have to focus on our commonality first, they don't tend to like it when some of the shortcomings of the theology are brought up. But we are, as God's people today, supposed to be focused on commonality first. We're to be focused on co-laboring in the restoration of Israel together, Jewish and non-Jewish believers. We're supposed to be standing against things like anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in our world. We're supposed to stay up to date with all of the global changes taking place. And hopefully the Lord is readying us for significant levels of service unto him in the days ahead. All right, so that concludes our theology roundup. As I said, it was going to be rather short. Thursday and Friday, we've got 2 long theology roundups planned. So just be thinking about that. All right, so let's switch over to some news. We don't have as much news as we did yesterday, but I think among some of the news which has come across my path, we've got some important things to go through. We do the news roundup after the theology roundup because the news roundup is, of course, time sensitive. All the links I'm about to go through, they will be available later for you to look at, read the articles, watch the clips. They'll be available for you to look at later when this episode is archived at messianicapologetics.net. Okay, so here's our first story, and the headline is what really caught me. Now, this is from Charisma, but it's actually from CBN News. This is from yesterday, October the 27th. As Americans lose trust in media and government, faith in the Bible is starting to grow. This is a short article, but it's very, very useful to look through. Consistent polling shows trust in America continues to fade in government institutions, even religion. Yet one new report finds that many still turn to the Bible, even as others question its relevance in modern life. And of course, one of the things I've been saying as we pray for peace in Israel, Gaza, the Middle East, got some more stories on that coming. Number 2, pray for peace, Russia and Ukraine. And then, of course, number 3, pray for reason and sanity to prevail here on the American home front. What are some of the things which are going to have been challenging people's trust in government, institutions, etc.? Things like Russiagate, Epstein, right? The auto pen with the Biden administration, all of these other things which just really get people upset to distrust government, personalities, institutions, industry, entertainment, etc. And of course, the only answer is for us to turn to Yeshua the Messiah, to turn to God, who has given us his word and is a steadfast reliance, whereas these different humans, they're all going to fail us. And even various religious leaders are going to fail us. And when we talk about failure, we're not talking about people making a few mistakes and having to apologize or retract something and then move on. We're talking about top shelf, A1 level failures. Here's an important one that came across my feed yesterday from Vivid on X. There's a 31-second clip. Jewish students at Columbia chanting, "God bless America," while the pro-Palestine students chant, "Death to America." Do you see the difference? And here, of course, you got the pro-Israeli group with Israeli flags and U.S. flags. You don't tend to see that among those who are chanting from the river to the sea. You just don't. All right, so here is an article which was actually direct messaged to me yesterday from Tablet Magazine. Hitler is back in style, from October the 22nd. This is a useful article to peruse because it addresses some of the causes of why you are seeing, mainly on the alternative right now, but just why you're seeing, and this is tracing some of its possible roots to libertarianism in America, why some people have begun to wonder, did the right side win the Second World War? Didn't Hitler do some good? Haven't we just been fed this narrative that Hitler was bad, Churchill was good, the Jews were victims? I mean, we're seeing a lot of that now, particularly on the alt-right. This is a good article to peruse as to possibly what some of the causes are behind that. From the New York Post yesterday, October the 27th, a controversial British political commentator who celebrated the horrific October the 7th terror attack by Hamas was detained in the U.S. just after starting a speaking tour. Sami Hamdi, who told Hamas to celebrate the victory days after the 2023 attack left 1,200 Israelis dead, was taken into custody at San Francisco International Airport on Sunday while heading on a speaking tour for the Council for American Islamic Relations, the organization said. Okay, yeah, this is what we're having to deal with now in our world. People who, now, plenty of Islamic teachers, Islamic leaders out there, they don't support the terrorist attack of October 7th, 2023, but then there are others who seemingly do. And there is no easy answer right now as to, what Western society is going to do about this Islamicist problem. Okay, moving on to our next story, and this is from My Charisma yesterday, October the 27th. I'm glad that they posted this. The silent Christian genocide the world refuses to acknowledge. And this is talking about what's happening in Nigeria. There is a massive genocide of Christians happening, and it seems as though no one is talking about it. Even we have been guilty of not keeping people's attention on this. In a video circulating on social media, a Nigerian pastor is calling for international help as the number of Christians persecuted and slaughtered for their faith continues to climb in the nation. Speaking from an actual grave of Christians who were killed for their faith, the pastor makes the reality of what is happening very clear. We are tired to be outside performing burials every day, and they expect us to silence now. It's an order. Nigerian government came out openly and denied there is no massacre. There is no genocide of Christians in Nigeria, and look at it today. Indeed, there are people out there who are raising the awareness of this matter. Whether we like it or not, what's happened, Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine has overshadowed this. But the numbers on some of these other tragedies which are happening far exceed those who have perished in the Middle East. And of course, one of the questions is, well, why is there not more attention to this? Is it possibly because it doesn't involve Jews or Palestinians? Death is death. When people lose a life, that's a tragedy. That's a catastrophe. And there's no easy answer to this, but we do need to pray for our brothers and sisters in Nigeria who experience persecution for their faith in Jesus and who need to have more attention given to what they have been enduring. All right, from open source intel yesterday, October the 27th, and there is a 1-minute, 20-second clip along with this. Megyn Kelly on Candace Owens controversy and Charlie's death. You all can read this in your time. But Megyn Kelly is one of these people who, you like some of the things she says, and then you kind of scratch your head with some of the other things she says. She's not someone who has come out and just totally dismissed Candace Owens or totally dismissed a Tucker Carlson, who she's worked with on different things in the past. But we do need to stay aware of how these different personalities out there who rely on podcasting, they were once perhaps part of more of the mainstream media, and now they've gone independent. We need to see how they respond to different currents and eddies in the world. Of course, the direction Candace Owens has gone, the direction a Tucker Carlson has gone, various others, regardless of whether you like them or not, it has been fascinating to witness. And I hope that Megyn Kelly isn't one of those persons who becomes fascinating to witness in that regard. But we have to monitor things. And so this is a useful clip to watch. Because indeed, the different sagas with these persons of influence is not over. Okay, our next story, and this is from Charisma again, and this deals more with Genesis 6 Nephilim and everything. Are these mysterious underwater UFOs part of a prophetic warning to America? So we've discussed this issue from other sources, not religious, but here this article is trying to Nephilim exposed, tying it to unidentified underwater craft. And of course, the conclusion is, while these reports of thousands of underwater UFOs may spark fear or fascination, they also serve as a reminder that in the last days, deception will increase in both the natural and supernatural realms. So this is just a useful thing to read through. Charisma does pick up on these kinds of things. Charisma does pick up on the Nephilim Genesis 6 issue. And the Nephilim Genesis 6 issue is something which a lot of people definitely like to talk about and speculate about. So speaking of Tucker Carlson from Visegrad 24, and this includes a 24-second clip. Tucker Carlson, this is from yesterday, October the 27th. Putin, Vladimir Putin, is the most popular leader in the world. Whether you're in Western Europe, Canada, the English-speaking world, outside the English-speaking world, Asia, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, you won't meet anyone who doesn't like Putin. Putin is like a global celebrity. That's a fact. I travel, I know. And the commentary here is, if Tucker thinks that there aren't people in Western Europe and Eastern Europe who don't like Putin, then he's delusional. Now, I don't doubt the fact that even since the conflict in Ukraine, which started in early 2022, I don't doubt the fact that there are a lot of people out there who admire Vladimir Putin, who we would wonder why. I don't doubt that at all. But whether or not Putin is the most popular leader in the world at large, whether he's a massive celebrity, of course, Tucker Carlson absolutely entitled to his opinion, but if someone like him needs to be more careful in how he says it. In my experience, I have encountered that he might be the most popular person in the world. That's how I would, and I don't agree with that, but that is how I would phrase things. But a lot of people are going to read that, or they're going to encounter that, and they're going to, yes, wonder, is he just delusional? What planet is he on? And what about peace between Russia and Ukraine? And of course, he is someone who has gone to Russia and he has interviewed Putin. So, of course, the Russia-Ukraine situation, we continue to pray for peace, but it's something which is continuing to unfold, and there continue to be ongoing developments with that. Okay, here's something which came across my Instagram feed last night from the channel I Am Redeemed. You can watch this in fuller detail. But the commentator here says, Israel hails Trump as Cyrus the Great. But why is this biblical? And showed a picture of a giant banner in Israel today where Cyrus the Great is alive. Some of you all have doubtlessly seen that. This is an individual who doesn't come out and just directly say that she thinks that Trump is the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah. She doesn't say that. But there are a lot of implications that he could be. And just as Cyrus was responsible for seeing huge number of Jewish exiles return back to the land of Israel, sponsor the reconstruction of the temple, the second temple, the implication is that if Trump is Cyrus the Great, what's he doing with this Middle East peace agreement? Is he going to help see the third temple reconstructed? And is he the beast? Or is it, at the very least, is he laying the groundwork for the arrival? But this is an important thing to look at, because there are people out there who are coming to the conclusion that Trump may be the beast. He might be the Antichrist. And while I don't have any specific videos that I consider too credible, but I'm sure in the next few days, another one will come across my path, so I'll just reference it to you. This new White House ballroom, there are people who are comparing the blueprints of the ballroom to the blueprints of the Second Temple, the First Temple, and anyway, they're coming to all kinds of weird conclusions regarding that. But there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of talk out there regarding Trump, regarding prophecy. We don't fully know, but what we do know is that we have to pay attention, we have to watch, and regardless of what is happening or not happening, Israel and Gaza, there are new dynamics in play now with just all those leaders brought together at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. There are new dynamics in play now which do make this a little different than before. Okay. Let's go to our next story now. Yes, from Open Source Intel Defender. And this is from last night, October the 27th, 10:33 p.m. Norwegian military intelligence confirmed on Monday what was believed already by several analysts, that Russia's recent test of the 9M730 Berezovnik, I mispronounced that, a low-flying nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed cruise missile was carried out from Novaya Zemlya, I probably mispronounced that too, an archipelago in northern Russia located in the Arctic Ocean. So right there. Novaya Zemlya, mispronounced that, was the site of several nuclear tests carried out by the Soviet Union throughout the Cold War, including Tsar Bomba. Go to YouTube and look up Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear weapon ever created and tested in 1961. All right, so we've got Russian missile testing. Is this something to be concerned about? I would be concerned about it. Of course, the Norwegians are right there, and they're reporting, yes, there was a test. We've got to pray for peace between Russia and Ukraine, because one of the things which Russia does have, and I'm not here to say that some of the other Western powers don't have developed nuclear technology, but the Russians really do have developed nuclear technology. This missile that they tested, according to the reports, it's not just a nuclear missile, but it's nuclear powered. Yes, this should have us concerned. And the pressure is doubtlessly building on Donald Trump right now to get something sorted out with Russia and Ukraine. And we know the president is in Asia right now. What kind of discussion is he going to be able to have with the Chinese president, President Xi, and hopefully he can pressure Russia to, end this conflict. Yeah, we're living in very uncertain and very unstable times. But these are all just wars and rumors of wars. Okay, so apparently this is something which has gotten more deadly, but this is from this morning, October the 28th, 7:35, from Open Source Intel Defender. Israel is threatening to break the ceasefire, they seem to already have by now, and resume offensive action against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, after remains that were discovered during a joint search and recovery operation yesterday by Hamas and the International Red Cross, and later turned over to the Israel Defense Force, were identified as belonging to Ophir Zarfati, whose body was already recovered in Gaza and returned to Israel back in December 2023. Okay, so it's not a surprise why there's going to be some start and stop with the ceasefire in Gaza. That's not a surprise. And we know that Israel has probably already accounted for this in their potential war plans. But before we went live, I did hear some reports that Israel was going to hit Hamas strongly. And when you see some of the other things which have come out, it's not a huge surprise as to why they would have taken this action. But we know that international pressure, international observation of what's happening is very, very strong right now. And yeah, do continue to pray that that we see peace, not more conflict. But it's not a surprise that certain remains returned to Israel may not be those of the people they were believed to be of. Okay, this is from Open Source Intel Defender this morning, October the 28th. And there's a 57-second clip. The Israel Defense Force has released drone footage from yesterday, which they say shows Hamas staging the recovery of hostage remains yesterday for members of the International Red Cross, claiming it to be a violation of the ceasefire in Gaza. And just here you see the video allegedly shows Hamas operatives bringing a body bag from a building to a hole that was dug in the ground before covering it in dirt. The operatives are then seen digging up the body bag they had just hid with an excavator before dumping it nearby. Okay. Of course, this is just information. So they had a body in a body bag. They dug a hole, covered it with dirt, and then the term would be they interred the body and then they disinterred the body to be quote unquote discovered by the International Red Cross. Hey, just file this away. The point is that is Hamas being completely honest? Are they being deceptive in returning the remains of those who perished? That's the big question. And Israel has said, hey, we're going to consider this a violation of the ceasefire, and they're going to go after. Again, the international pressure on Israel, very, very great right now because the world is watching. They want an end to this conflict. They want an end to the killing. They want to see the rebuilding of Gaza. They want to see Hamas hopefully disarm, disintegrate. Back to Russia and Ukraine. This is from Visegrad 24 this morning, 8:41 a.m. That's Sergei Lavrov. Lavrov says Russia is ready to offer Europe security guarantees of non-aggression. We have repeatedly said that we had no intention to attack any of the current NATO or EU member states. We're ready to formalize this position and future security guarantees for this part of Eurasia, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. And the commentary is, do you believe his words? I think for many people who are tired of this conflict, they're tired of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, they want to believe that there are people in the Russian government who they have no intention of going after, as Lavrov was quoted as saying, NATO or EU member states. But what are you going to do about the conflict in Ukraine? Are you willing to halt where you are at least and stop the bloodshed, stop the killing, exchange prisoners, exchange what needs to be exchanged, and conclude this? And thus far, from at least what most of us have been able to see out there, we don't consider the Russian government to be that sincere. Here's a useful one. This came across my social media feed this morning on X from Sarah Malcogny. A checklist for where we are at in the timeline. We are another day closer. And she has this meme where she's posted signs of the end times, the return of the Jews to Israel, check. Famines and earthquakes, check. Persecution of believers, check. Increase in lawlessness, check. False prophets, check. The gospel preached worldwide, no check by that. Signs in the heavens, check. Natural disasters, check. Moral decay, check. Wars and rumors of wars, check. Mockers of the end times, check. And then she has a number of other things which don't have checks, including, excuse me, nation against nation, rebuilding of the third temple, two witnesses, rise of the Antichrist, rise of a global economy, mark of the beast, Euphrates River drying up, the battle of Armageddon. Okay, so she probably represents a standard premillennial, pre-tribulationist approach to the end times. And I would agree that many of those general signs we're seeing in greater concentration now. My question is this, and this is something which I have tried to raise for a number of years, ever since the release of my first book, When Will the Messiah Return? What other things are we as believers not paying attention to regarding the end times, which we should be, which are just as legitimate signs to add to a list like that, but for whatever reason have not been included on a list like that. And they involve not only the end time restoration of Israel, but they involve things which the Messianic community is specifically focusing on. Things like Romans 9, 11, and 12. Excuse me, Romans 9, 10, 11. Things like the nation streaming to Zion in the end times to be instructed in Moses' teaching. What role is the Messianic community supposed to play? We talk about an ecclesiology rooted in the tabernacle of David, Amos 9, 11, and 12, and Acts 15, 15 through 18. That still has not come to full fruition. All of these restoration of Israel prophecies, which we believe are going to culminate in the return of Yeshua. How do they get added to a list like that? And how do we as Messianic people have more mature discussions about them when we see what's going on in our midst today? So, an important prompt from that. Okay, and our final story, and this is from Breitbart from today, October the 28th. Now he tells us Bill Gates backflips and says climate change no longer threat to humanity after all. And there are a number of stories which have picked this up. And there it is, folks. Why are people panicking about the weather? Climate doomer Bill Gates thinks everyone should just calm down. He believes climate change is a serious problem, but it won't be the end of humanity as we know it. A 17-page memo released Tuesday by the billionaire reveals. Gates now thinks scientific innovation will curb any threats, real and perceived, to the planet's climate, and it's instead time for a strategic pivot away from focusing on limiting rising temperatures to fighting poverty and preventing disease. Okay, so there are going to be a lot of people who respond in different ways to this report, at least from a Bill Gates, that climate change was not the threat he thought it was, possibly. And instead, we now need to be focusing on poverty issues and disease issues. Okay? We haven't really discussed the whole issue of climate change or the world or whatnot. I mean, one of the things, unfortunately, which is true, because I know a lot of people who are climate change skeptics, they do believe that we should be pursuing alternative and more efficient forms of energy beyond petroleum, but they're still climate change skeptics. But one of the indisputable things is, if this situation between Russia and Ukraine doesn't get resolved, we could have climate change, okay? Because a nuclear armed conflict will bring climate change, and that is a fact. And that's also very disturbing and very frightening. But in terms of whether you are, filling up your tank in your car several times a week, or whether you're eating beef, or regardless of whether it is, Bill Gates is changing his tune. But look, poverty, definitely something we should be concerned about, especially as believers. Of course, Yeshua said in the Gospels, the poor will always be with you. Disease, of course, disease has been around since the very beginning of humanity. But yes, of course, we should be fighting that. And we should be fighting for clean water, sanitary living conditions, good, healthy food, things like that. So Bill Gates, interesting remarks. And what other major leaders out there, major figures of influence, are going to say similar things? All right, so that concludes our news roundup. And as I said, Thursday and Friday, I'm planning on some longer episodes with more to be discussed in terms of theology. And this is from some of your suggestions, by the way. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and support for all of our ministry efforts. If you have not already, please do check out my website, messianicapologetics.net. There you can access a wide number of free articles, frequently asked questions entries, back issues of Outreach Israel News. You can check into some back episodes of Messianic Insider, McKee Moment Shorts, and check into our various adventures over the years. And please, if you have not already, do give a thumbs up to this live stream. It will help give us more exposure on the online platforms. We'll see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, shalom, and take care.